Hello everyone and welcome to Book Solid. We are dropping in here in between seasons just to give you guys some bonus episodes. It's just going to be me for this one. Again, do not get used to it. I've mentioned this before, I think in the Twilight and Midnight Sun episode, that occasionally we'll pop in one without the other for a quick bonus or something. But for season 3, our official season 3 that's coming back, it's still going to be me in India. But I just wanted to jump in your feed today and talk about Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. I had been really anticipating this book coming out, and now it's finally here and I desperately want to talk about it. And we do have a few more bonuses coming out in the meantime before season 3. This is not like our official season 3 launch or anything, but I just wanted to get back on and do a couple of bonuses. So season 3 will probably be coming sometime in the fall. But if you want to see the schedule for what we have coming up for bonuses, you can check that out at our Instagram, or you can check it out at the link in our the description for this episode. I'll be sure to include it there as well.
Spoiler alert! Hey guys, just as a heads up, we will be revealing spoilers in this episode. If you haven't yet read the book or seen the show or film, this is a courteous reminder to proceed with caution.
So, jumping right in, I'll just say at the top of the episode, I am a huge fan of Nicola Yoon's writing. The first book of hers I ever read was Everything, Everything, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like she just has a really unique writing style and does a really good job of bringing each of her characters to life. They each seem like they have such unique personalities, and like I would want to hang out with each of them. Like they're just really witty, and she includes like a lot of lists and pictures in her book, like from the perspective of her characters, and that's just something I really enjoy. So I already had high hopes for this book going into it. The cover, we can talk about that. The cover is just absolutely gorgeous. So I was ready, and reading it, I have to say, like, I just wasn't expecting it to be as emotional as it was. It was really good and I really enjoyed it, but wow, we'll talk about later, that kind of plot twist was a bit of a sucker punch to the gut. But just starting out, like, overarching thoughts about the book, I really, really enjoyed the setting. So it takes place in LA, for those of you who haven't read it yet. And I went to college in Long Beach. My first job out of college was in LA, in Santa Monica. And so just the way she wrote about LA was very relatable, and it kind of made me nostalgic for that time of my life. And especially the way she wrote about the friendships that Evie had with Martin and Cassidy and Sophie, her closest friends. And I feel like that's something I really kind of took for granted in high school and definitely in college, is just always having your friends around. Like, it's so easy to hang out with them. You see them every single day. In college, you know, most of my friends, we all lived in the same dorm. So, like, I truly saw them every single day. We all lived together. And then even after that, I got an apartment with some of my friends. And so you just kind of think it's always going to be like that. Like, oh yeah, my friends are always going to be just down the hall. And, you know, in adulthood, everyone's a little bit further apart. We're a little bit busier. And so just the way she wrote about it, it definitely made me kind of miss that time. And it was just really enjoyable to see that friendship between the four of them, like their weekly brunches and hanging out at Cassidy's house. And it was written really well. It just reminded me of that time in my own life. Moving on to characters. So I really liked Evie. It's interesting because, you know, if you read the description for this book, you're like, okay, she's going to be a little cynical. Is that going to be kind of like hard to read, or is that going to make her kind of self-destructive with, you know, her love interest X? Like, how far is it going to go? But I really enjoyed the slow burn of her relationship with X, because I think I saw a tagline for this book, like, it's not a love story until it is. And it's so true. Like, I wondered too if it would kind of be cliche with her like pushing him away and then deciding to let him in. And it wasn't even like that either. I mean, she was kind of gradually letting him in the entire time, and I liked watching their relationship unfold, watching their friendship, and like seeing her open herself back up again. And so, and we're going to get to the major moment later, but so seeing that door that was like slowly, gradually opening this entire time just slam shut was really hard, because I was like, oh, Evie, you're making so much progress. So yeah, that was definitely, it was beautifully written. It was a believable relationship. I mean, like, okay, maybe the dance competition and stuff, sure, maybe that was a bit of a reach, but as for the relationship between the two of them, I felt like it was very believable, and I know India and I have talked about this before, but our thing with young adult novels, it tends to be, not that we don't like them at all, that's not the case, but we both agree that it kind of tends to be a little bit of a reach sometimes with how these couples get together or the stuff they go through. It's like, what high school are y'all going to? You know, who's doing this stuff? Like, it always seems like I don't know anyone who was like this at ages 15 through 19, but this felt like real people. These felt like people I knew or I could even see myself in. Oh, and briefly before I move on more into like X and the kind of the plot of the book, I want to talk about her friend Martin. He was probably one of my favorite characters in the book. I thought he was absolutely hilarious, and the way he described, like, with his fashion choices, the stuff he would say, I thought he was hilarious and kind of like the perfect addition, or I don't even want to say sidekick, but he was like the perfect background character for everything that was going on, because when I first read the description, I assumed she would kind of be suffering in silence with this like newfound power of being able to see, you know, what happens to each couple from the start to the end of their relationship. And so her kind of like immediately being able to tell Martin and him believing her, one, and kind of having her back through the whole thing, that was just like, that was really nice and unexpected. And I feel like it kind of enhanced the plot in a way, especially when she found out what was going to happen to Sophie and Cassidy, and having to deal with that on her own. Oh, and even with X, oh my gosh, yes. Having to deal with that on her own would have been immensely difficult, and so having a support system in Martin who could understand her motivations and why she was behaving the way she was, that made me feel better for her, because I just hate misunderstandings, and they're often used as a plot device in books and movies, shows, any media, to create conflict, because, I mean, it's a great way to create conflict, but I hate misunderstandings that could easily be fixed if people would just communicate with each other. And so that scene after she finds out that Sophie and Cassidy are dating and they come over to her house, obviously she can't say, I'm seeing visions of couples and their relationships now, and I see how yours ends and it ruins our friendship. Obviously, I know she can't communicate that. But, like, she just really said nothing, and then the stuff she chose to say was so hurtful. And I was like, wait, just, tell them that you're happy for them, but you're nervous about what it means for your friendship, or tell them that you're still working through emotions about your dad. Just say something. Because I was like, their whole, like, exactly what X said to her is, you're so worried about them breaking up your friendship that you just broke it up yourself anyway. And, let go of any time that you could have possibly had together. So, yeah, just seeing that, it was so frustrating for me, because I'm like, just speak, just communicate, please. And getting into kind of like the whole overarching point of the book about love, and I feel like this book was like a love letter to love, essentially. And kind of, the different shapes and forms it comes in. It's the love she has for her friends, the love she has for her dad, for her sister, romantic love, the love she has for X. And I think that the book did a really good job of posing some interesting questions about what it means to love, and, that question of, and I think she even says it in the book, is it better to have loved and to have lost than to never have loved at all, or what people are willing to risk in the name of love. And seeing Evie go through that journey and kind of make that decision for herself, it really was a beautiful thing. And the ending of her realizing what she was going to do in her relationship with X. And I mean, if you're listening to this, I assume you read it. We had the spoiler alert, so but this is your last chance right here. Major spoiler coming, but finding out that X was going to die, that was a punch to the gut. I was not expecting that at all. I was expecting like a very lighthearted, not necessarily like enemies to lovers trope, but just, this like slow, hesitant relationship blossoming into this like big, deep love. And, we're at that point in the book where she's finally opened herself up. She's willing to let herself be hurt, so to speak, or willing to let herself go into the unknown. And she sees that X is going to die. It was just like, I was like, okay, well, any progress she made is coming to a screeching halt. And it was really interesting once we found that out, because I was like, where does the book go from here? Like, I feel like this is going to be really hard for Evie to recover from, given what we know about her past and what happened with her dad. So I don't really know. I was like, I don't know how she's going to go forward from here, because she was already on her last straw, so it seemed, and she was like, okay, I'll give the idea of love one more chance, and then she just got sucker punched by it again. And so her kind of making that realization of, like, love isn't necessarily something you choose. Otherwise, I think she would have chosen not to love X, or anyone at all, really, to prevent herself from ever being hurt like that again and betrayed the way she was by her dad, and the way she felt like she was by her dad. And then her kind of realizing that, like, not seeing X wouldn't make her love him any less. And she was letting go of the limited time that they would have together. And so that was just kind of interesting to watch that journey come full circle, because it was painful, honestly. And I just didn't know how we were going to kind of tie up the end of the book. I didn't know if maybe she was going to forget that she saw that vision, like once she lost her powers, if she would forget about the vision entirely, because it's almost, it's just so, it's hard that I know she's going to go through the remainder of their relationship kind of counting down the days. And it's so interesting that they had that conversation at the bonfire, would you rather know? And she was the only one who said yes, and now she is kind of cursed with that burden. So yeah, it was much heavier in that regard than I was anticipating, but I'm not mad at it by any means. It definitely made me think, and I think it invites some larger conversations that I would love to have. Any of you have read the book, please go to our Discord or to our Instagram and, like, tell me what you thought of that twist, because it just definitely wasn't something that I could see coming at all. And speaking of the love and the relationship between Evie and X, so I realized while I was reading this that I really don't read many books with love or romance at the forefront. I just tend to not gravitate towards them. And if they do feature any kind of love or relationship, it's definitely not central to the plot. It's just kind of something happening in the background. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's intentional. A lot of times when I read books with, like, some kind of love or relationship, it just feels unrealistic to me. I'm not really sure why that is. So I guess that's just why I don't go toward it. If any of you have any good recommendations for that, let me know, because I'm willing to try. I just haven't really found any that have blown me away. But this one, like I said earlier in the episode, it did feel more realistic to me than most YA love stories, or even any really love story in a book. And I've seen people say that the dance competition was unrealistic, but I personally loved it. I feel like it was the perfect backdrop for this story. Fifi was amazing. It was the perfect backdrop to tell this story, in my opinion. And I thought it was really fun, really exciting. I wish we would have gotten more details about, like, their costumes and stuff, especially after Fifi made that whole big deal about them needing to dress better for each practice. I was like, ooh, we're going to get some kind of montage with outfits and stuff like that. So that would have been cool to see. But I thought it just made the book a little more fun, a little more lighthearted. Given the content that was coming, I'm glad that it did feature that. And honestly, it kind of reminded me of Silver Linings Playbook in a way. Not at all content-wise, they're very, very different. But just, like, the idea of this dance competition and watching these two kind of unlikely companions come together through dance. That's just what made me think of it. And I actually haven't read Silver Linings Playbook. I've only seen the movie, and I didn't even know it was a book until years after I watched the movie, so I feel like I have to kind of read it now just to have a comparison in my head. But yeah, it definitely gave me that vibe. So going into final thoughts, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that I would definitely recommend this book. I would say to just know what you're going into, to know, like, it is lighter for the most part, but there are some heavier themes, unexpected heavier themes, and it kind of was heartbreaking. Like, I had an actual physical reaction to finding out what was going to happen to X. Like, I felt my stomach just slowly drop, because it was kind of as the book was reaching its climax, and you're like, maybe everything will be okay, maybe everything will work out. But I mean, it's like life. Like, you know, you don't know what's going to happen, and her giving them this fairy tale ending wouldn't have been realistic. So I would definitely recommend know what you're getting into for sure. If you haven't read any of Nicola Yoon's other books, I highly recommend those as well. As I mentioned, she's an amazing writer. I love how she's such a champion for diversity. Her novels always have such a diverse cast of characters. So as you know, here at Book Solid, that's something we really love and really appreciate. So highly, highly recommend. Our next episode will be on The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris, and I actually will have a guest on that episode. It will be one of my personal friends who's also a fellow book lover, so it'll be the two of us chatting about that. Again, if you want to see the schedule for the rest of the bonus episodes we have coming up, it'll be down in the podcast description or episode description, as well as over on our Instagram. If you've read Instructions for Dancing and you want to chat about it, don't forget to go to our Discord or Instagram. Also will be in the episode description, and I'll see you next episode.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. If you like what you heard and want to stay in the loop, be sure to follow our Instagram and like our Facebook at Book Solid Podcast. You can also check out our Discord server where you can leave suggestions, engage in discussions, and take a deeper dive into our episodes. We'll have the links to all of our social media accounts in our episode show notes.